This is the Indianness podcast, stories of success from leaders and changemakers of Indian origin. Why have Indians achieved success across so many different disciplines around the globe? I have no idea, but let's find out together because every story is unique. I'm really excited to have Sowmya Gottipati with us today. She's the head of global supply chain technology at Estée Lauder, a luxury beauty brand company that most people are familiar with. But prior to this, she's also been in leadership roles at NBC Universal and AT&T. I invited her on this show as I was fascinated by her non-traditional journey in the media and the beauty industry. Welcome, Sowmya. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Wonderful. So, Sowmya, this podcast is Indianness. It's really about chronicling your journey, the challenges, inflection points, how you got here, how it can be used to inspire folk. So, in order for us to do that, we really need to start right at the beginning, where the journey began. So, if you can tell us as much as you can about where were you born, tell us about your parents, if there were grandparents involved. Uh, just let's start with that, and then we'll dig deeper.
Sure. So you're making me think really long time ago.
I know.
uh,
Take your
I
time.
was, sure. I was born in a small place in India, in a state called Andhra Pradesh. And my parents were both the teachers. Mm, My mom used to teach biology and English. My dad was math and English teaching. And they both have been retired as the principals of high school. Um, so that's where my journey really began. Um, I have one younger brother. He also actually lives in New Jersey. And, I guess that growing up in in a household with the two teachers, you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So, Sowmya, sorry to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
go ahead.
No, so firstly, what was the name of the town in Andhra Pradesh that you were born?
It's really my grandparents' village. It's called Chautapalli. I probably never heard of it, may never hear it. It's a really, really small place. But I was born there, but my parents moved around because of the jobs and stuff. So I ended up growing up in different places, all small places in and around that area. Um, so probably around every 3 years or so, we were moving when I was growing up specifically. And then once I finished my 10th grade, then I moved to Vizag, also called Vishakhapatnam. That's where I did my 11th and 12th, or intermediate, it used to be called. And then I got into engineering at Andhra University. I did the mechanical engineering at Andhra University. Once I graduated from there, then I came to the United States for my master's.
So, just to head back again in time, uh, mom and dad were moving around every, let's just say, 3 years. Both were academics. You had a sibling. How was that? Because you have to kind of get into a new environment every few years. And moving was all in Andhra Pradesh, right?
Correct.
So, how was that for Sowmya to create new friends, a new environment, etc.? Just walk us through that.
Sure. Looking back, I guess how they say kids are resilient, right? That was probably true with me. And it did, I don't think it bothered me. At least I do not remember instances where, oh, I'm having a hard time fitting into the school. None of that. Maybe because my parents were teachers, maybe that helped as well. Maybe that provided that security and additional comfort. So that wasn't, not that big of a deal. But, because my parents were teachers, the household was, we grew up in a very disciplined environment. And, getting lower grades were not an option, right? Not doing well in school was not an option. And um, looking back, I think proud to say I had actually a good, happy childhood.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, were your parents teaching in the same school that you were going to school
In high school, yes.
in high school?
Not in the elementary level, but in high school,
High
they were
school,
teaching. Yeah. Mhm.
but not in the primary school. So, in primary school, the medium of education, was it in Telugu, Hindi, English?
Yeah, it was the Telugu, the local medium. Um,
Okay. So,
yeah.
you were going to school in Telugu. Parents obviously had very high expectations. Um, were there any basically subjects that you were kind of drawn to early on, Soumya?
It's certainly math was my favorite subject growing up. I used to really like, solving equations, and even like throughout my educational year, even like when I got into engineering, for example, I hated to remember for long, big formulas. And instead, I even in the exam, I would rather derive the formula myself and work through the problem itself versus memorize. So kind of like I really like the challenge of solving things. So I certainly was drawn to math.
So, math was something that you were drawn to. Now, at home, either was mom or dad, anyone helping with homework or working with you at all?
Not so much a homework part. They didn't have to help with the homework because
Mm.
typical, but they would teach me, I guess, being so that I could be ahead of the
Right.
class, or I could keep up and be ahead. I think that's where probably they taught me, and even in summer holidays.
Mm.
Oh, I used to hate it in those days, but I guess that's probably looking back, that's a good thing. Even in summer holidays, we still had to spend like about an hour or two in the afternoon with books.
Folks.
Uh, yeah.
So it was not really a holiday per se, from completely from books. Yeah, no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Uh, were the courses tough, Soumya, in the early primary school? What is your recollection, or was it easy for you?
No, it was easy for me. It was
It
Um,
was easy for
yeah,
you.
and that too, I like I said, I grew up in a small places, so
Yeah.
probably the environment was not like that competitive, or you
Mm.
know what I mean. So because I was always just like several steps
Ahead.
about, higher than the rest of the kids, so that it wasn't a problem.
Um, did you make any friends early on in school? How was that?
I did. I think the difference is, I had friends, but because we were moving every 3 years or so, I didn't have long lasting friendships. So I don't think I'm in touch with any of my school friends, if you will. College and all, yes, but going back to high school, not exactly, or even elementary for that matter. Um, that's one aspect of it because of the moment, etc. And the second aspect of it is also, um, how do I describe it? I kind of was raised in a quite differently from rest of the girls around me, where most girls, most households in India, especially in those days, they had to pay attention at home, or they were not. Once they got home, they didn't come out to play on the street or like do other things. Whereas I wasn't raised that way. Once I got home, I was kind of free and play and whatever. And then a lot of students of my parents, they used to come home for, I don't know, either as a tuition or like something or the other, mostly boys. And I used to play with them, never restricted in so because of that reason, I had like a lot of friends to play with and do all of that,
Right.
but not necessarily, you know,
Close close bonding.
close friends.
So these boys, you'd come over for tuitions, etc., and you would play. What would you play? What kind of games were you remember?
Like badminton or maybe
Mm.
sometimes the board games or, things
Okay.
of that nature. Yeah.
No, that's great. Uh, so as time went on, you kept moving. Were grandparents at all in the picture here, Soumya?
Yeah. My grandparents, my grandfather was very progressive for him. And I think that carried to my parents and, and then to me. Is he was very progressive in terms of he believed in education is the gateway to better life. So he always encouraged and his kids and grandkids to focus on that. And so that's how I think we all kind of inherited that mindset, if you will. But they lived a little far away, like a couple of hours from home, my hometown. Um, and we used to go there every holidays, festivals or summer holidays and stuff. So that used to be the main place we used to go. And yeah, that was fun part. And my grandmother actually raised me till I was 3 or 4 or something like that, because my mom was working. And so my grandmother actually raised me. And she raised my brother too when he was young.
So you were reasonably close to the grandparents?
Yeah, very, very close. Yeah.
Yeah. And dad was very progressive. He wanted all the kids, boys, girls, to get educated. Um,
Yeah.
and especially in those times, that's a pretty progressive viewpoint. Um,
Yeah.
and then your brother, how what's the difference in age between him and you, Soumya?
He's about 5 years younger than me.
5 years younger than you. Okay. Okay. And then you as you were moving towards high school, um, how did you decide that you wanted to go to Vishakhapatnam, Vizag? What was the thought process there?
I mean, there were, I guess, influ- influences. It's hard to explain. Well, so where I was, the village that I was growing up, you know, 10th grade was the last, no, last grade you can do. After that, you got to go somewhere. So I had a couple of options. One, go into a residential college, residential school, and do 11th and 12th, right? Or go to Vishakhapatnam, where a cousin of mine was there at the time. He was doing his MTech, and he said, "Why I would like to take her with me and she could stay with me and go to attend college there. And also I can actually help her with her education or tuition or that kind of stuff." And it was very, I think, brave of my parents to let me go that way and let me stay at that delicate age of 15 or 16, right? Um, with the boy cousin. But I think that was really, I think it created a lot of opportunities and opened doors a lot for me, because Vizag was it is a huge cosmopolitan city. Because of that, you see all sorts of people, like well, from north, south, different cultures come together. I think that actually gave me a lot of exposure, a bigger picture thinking, and yeah, ability to speak English and all those kinds of things. So look, I think it was very hard. I have to be honest with you. The first year or so is very hard, because going from a small place to a big place, and you don't quite fit, both from dressing up point of view, as well as the speaking and habits and everything else. And it's almost like you have to learn a lot of things. So obviously, it was hard initially, but then after the first year, it just became natural, and really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. Yeah, that was one, I would say, probably a good turning point.
Yeah, it seems like a big turning point, inflection point. So so was that a decision made by your parents, or did you make the decision to go to Vizag?
It was my parents, and
Okay.
I didn't resist or anything. It was, if I
Because the
had said
cousin.
no, absolutely don't want to go, and they would have been fine with it. But
Mm.
it was primarily their decision.
And the first year was very hard. Was ever in your mind that I want to just go back? I don't want to be here. Did that ever come in your mind?
I'm sure it crossed my mind at times.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
this was your first exposure to, in many cases, people from around the country, as you rightly said, from the north, east, west,
correct. Right.
because you were from the village. And
Right.
now, was the medium of instruction in English in Vizag?
Yeah. That was English. Yeah.
So was that also a little hard for you, Soumya, or was that was not
Yes,
as
it was. Yeah, certainly it was. It was hard, but if I remember right, I think the hardest part was really not having parent with you. It's like you don't have that security blanket with you. You don't have that comfort when when you are down. You don't have something to fall back to, go back home. Yeah, yeah. I think that was problem emotionally. I think that was the harder part. Um,
yeah. Were you staying in a dorm during that time, or how was it?
and no, it was their house.
So you were staying with your cousin at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was a big relief, at least to have that kind of a support system, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So how were the studies? Where did you find, because of the change going from village to Vizag, going to English medium, how did you react to academically there, Soumya?
Um, I mean, I think I had to work much harder in the beginning, because it just takes extra time, right? But I think once I got the hang of it, I was totally fine. Eventually, it eventually, yeah, like I said, maybe it took like a little more than 6 months to get adjusted to pick up the speed kind of a thing. But once I got the hang of it, I think I made good friends there. So they used to help me as well. Um, yeah, eventually it worked out well.
And you started making some friends also, you
Yeah,
mentioned, in Vizag,
yeah,
and who kind of helped you.
yeah.
And these were, friends who were also probably going through the same situation as you are, coming into Vizag, etc., right?
Mm, not really. Most of them were locals. They grew
Local?
up there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And were you also still focusing on math, and what were the focus at that time?
I think I didn't do the CBSE route. I did the typical Indian. So when you go to 11th grade, you have to do either MPC or BIPC, maths, physics, chemistry, or biology, physics, chemistry. So I was in the maths, physics, chemistry route. The way it works in Andhra is you do that for 2 years, MPC group, and then you give an entrance to get into engineering school. Um, uh, so that was the path I chose to go because of my interests. Yeah.
And so, when you did the 11th and the 12th, then you did your entrance exam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how did you fare in that entrance exam for engineering?
I think I did very well, because in those days, this is Andhra specific entrance exam. So about in those days, I think about 80,000 or 1 lakh kids used to give the entrance. And then there were about uh, total of 3,000 seats available. And then out of which about total of 1,000 are from university colleges. The other 2,000 are more private colleges where you pay a lot more tuition and um, it's I guess next level below, if you will. So you want to be in a good college, you had to be in the top 1,000 kind of a thing. So I think my rank at that time was like 600 or something like that. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
That's pretty good. Um, so then you got you were 600 out of, I don't know, what, 3 lakh people. My gosh. Uh,
1 lakh.
1 lakh. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
still, given the things that we think are competitive here, that's pretty impressive. So then you got admitted into an engineering college. Which engineering college and where? Vizag? In Vizag?
Andhra University. Yeah. In Vizag, Andhra University Engineering College. It's a
Okay.
university college. Uh,
And what area did you pick? What did you have to pick a specialization?
yeah. I did mechanical engineering.
Mechanical, because at that time I think
Yeah.
everything was kind of mechanical. Was the big
Right.
thing at that time. Yeah.
I mean, computer science and electronics were also actually, they were the top priority.
Hmm.
But my rank was 600 high.
So you couldn't get
That was not available for me. Yeah. The next option is the mechanical engineering. So
mechanical.
that's how it went. Yeah.
So then you joined Andhra University, the mechanical engineering program. Uh, uh, how did mom and dad react to you doing the mechanical engineering work? Was that did they say, hey, uh, were they supportive of that? Did they want you to pick something else?
No, they were very supportive of it. They didn't have any concern. They were like, if that's what you want to do, that's what, it's up to you kind of a thing. And they also know that eventually it's not end all be all, right? So along the way, you choose the path that best suits you. So as long as it's engineering education, once you have the good foundation, then you can do different things afterwards, depending on, what you like.
Well, that's great. So how was Andhra University when you joined, academically, socially? Tell us a little bit about, because now you're going from a school, even though it was high school, to, now you're going to a bigger pond, or maybe a little bit of a larger lake more than a pond. So,
Right. Actually, that would actually turned out to be much easier for me because by this time I was a local in Vizag. So, and many of my uh, uh, cohort is they are like from different places. So that gave me comfort. I'm much more confident now because I know the place really well, all of that. And academics, they were fine. It's their, I mean, there are some tough exams and not so tough. It's a mixed bag. That wasn't a problem. But one thing I think that was I wish it was different, but like because it's mechanical engineering, and I was in a way lucky because we were at least two girls in a class of 35. Um,
wow, only two girls in
yeah,
the whole class.
yeah,
Wow.
only two girls in the whole class. So that's the tough part, right? Because yeah, you just don't have enough of that interaction, and in those days, it's still boys and girls are separate, and like not as much of an open society at that time. So that's one thing I felt like I didn't get a full experience of college, enjoying the college because of that. Um,
Mm. So is that more socially, academically, or both?
it's socially. Yeah, academically, there was no issue because it didn't really matter. Even in labs, I mean, we were fine. Like we had to do welding and like those kinds of things, and it was fine. That wasn't a problem. And I'm generally um, more on the adventure tomboy side anyway, naturally speaking. So that didn't bother me. It was more socially.
Hmm.
Eh, yeah,
So because it was very restricted, there were just two of
right,
you, and
right,
probably spending time with each other
right.
by by force, choice, whatever you want to call it. Uh, so were there things that you were starting to gravitate towards in the mechanical engineering area, Somya?
I think some of the um, things that I mean, within the mechanical engineering, I think the engineering drawing was something that I felt I was really, really good, like visualizing the designs and things of that nature. And also anything with logic is really what I like. So some of the engineering mechanics and fluid mechanics and internal combustion engines, like I really liked that side of things. Yeah,
So you like to tinker with things. Is that fair to say?
it, you could say that. Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's like
mecha-
solving a puzzle is
solving a
what
puzzle.
I like. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. So mechanical engineering was hopefully giving you that outlet to solve the puzzle, maybe visualize issues, etc. Uh, did it become clear to you a little bit during those that time that where your inclinations are, or it took you a little later? I'm trying to figure out where was a little bit. Was there an aha moment there or not?
So I think by end of first year of engineering, or maybe beginning of second year, I have decided, or at least it became clear to me what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into management side of things. So I decided I wanted these are one of the two things I want to do at the end of the graduation. That is either coming to US and pursue the higher education and do something big, or if I stay in India, I wanted to go into IAM and get an MBA from one of the IAM. So that's the decision I made. I think probably either end of first year or beginning of the second year of my college years. And that's when I started preparing for it. Not so much towards IAM MBA side because that had a lot more time, but researching about US colleges and what do I need to do to prepare for it, and talking to different people to understand what it takes and what my options are, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so I laid the groundwork starting in my second year. And then third year is when I took my GRE and stuff. So that by the time I graduated, I had everything ready. Um,
So, but how did you come upon the thought that you wanted to focus in on management? And then the second question would be that pursuing US, were there other people who were around you, etc.? So it's basically a two-part question because we try to tell our listeners, how decisions get made, what thought process goes into it. Sometimes they are right, sometimes they are not. So that's what I'm trying to understand is what was the thought process there?
I think the kind of about coming to US is like certainly there were a few other people that I knew that either already came here or in the process of coming. Um, so that kind of inspired me. I think one of the things that I um, was a push for me is Uh, number one, obviously, pursue education and experience a different life, that type of stuff, right? And the second thing is also I'm a person. I like, it sounds corny, but I like freedom, if you will. I think I felt a little suffocated in Indian culture at that time. As a girl, I couldn't do a lot of things that I wanted to do because you're always judged by, oh, why you should not do this as a girl, you should not do that. Um, those types of things, I don't fit into that mold, a traditional mold. And for me, like going to US would give me the opportunity to go away from that and really do what I want to do. Um, as an example, a more of a concrete example, actually, I wanted to become a pilot growing up. Um, right. That was my sort of like secret dream, if you will, right? But obviously, that was not possible for many reasons. Number one, it used to be very, very expensive. It's not it's not reachable for a common person. Um, and the second thing is, I guess I didn't even know how to go about it, or like, there's nobody around me that is remotely into that. And like, it was just a fantasy. It remained as a fantasy, if you will. Um, but we can come to that later. Like once I came to this country, I actually pursued that. But so like that, I have a I'm not, I don't fit into the traditional mold, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's what really pushed me to come here, come to the United States and to do other things. Management is another one where I also felt like pursuing management. It gives you that opportunity to be yourself, um, to do, at least you have a lot more leverage. uh,
So I'm trying to unpack because you said some very, very important things. Obviously, one is that you felt a little, to use the word, maybe suffocated because there was a box that was kind of at that time specifically, and you wanted to really go out of that box, and you thought the U.S. would offer you those opportunities from maybe conversations you had with other people or information that flowed. That's one. Number two was, that you wanted to be a pilot. Now, from what age and why did you want to be a pilot? Had you flown in a plane before?
no, I think it was,
So tell us how the genesis of that. That's very important because there's a further story as we will talk about when we talk about because when you came to the US. But do want to hear where did that thing strike? And as you know, now there are many, many female pilots. But let's just talk about where was your interest in being a pilot? How?
I think, well, it started off as an admiration for, man landing on the moon and, some of the astronauts, for some reason, Valentina Tereshkova, who was the first female astronaut from Russia, right? Like, those are the things that I grew up studying about. And I think that, oh, I want to be the first woman from India to be doing this. Like, those are the kinds of thoughts that I had growing up. I think that's what created that inspiration. And because of that, I want to be a pilot or I want to be an astronaut. It was more of that. And just studying about, whether it be Neil Armstrong or Valentina Tereshkova or like any of those people, that's what really used to inspire me. Um,
So breaking the mold, maybe trying something unknown with what some of these astronauts had done, and maybe flying a plane also is sort of a freedom too because you are going up. Obviously, some people are scared, but maybe that's what was kind of interesting for you, Soumya. Yeah, no, and then you mentioned about management. That management would give you a lot of freedom. So if you notice, Soumya, the word freedom, breaking the mold, comes across you in many ways. Breaking the mold is also about freedom. Flying, also in some ways, as astronauts will tell you, it's about freedom. Management was about freedom because maybe you felt a little restricted at that time in India or maybe in those circumstances. And then, what about your parents? They were supportive of you going into management or going into to the US, etc.
yeah, absolutely. My parents, like I said, because of my grandfather's influence, my mom and my dad were also very much like that. They were very progressive. So they never restricted me at home to do things this way versus that way. I remember growing up, like my mom never told me to come and help her in the kitchen. She never ever asked me to do that. I didn't learn cooking growing up for the most part. um, so I had that freedom at home per se, but when you step into the larger society, it's different. I still had to conform to the norms and probably, that probably I felt a lot more constrained because of that, or restricted because of that. But my parents were extremely supportive. And in fact, when I was coming to US or when I made the decision to come to US, a lot of people told them, like, how are you sending? She's a girl, not married. How are you able to say, why are you sending her? It's not safe, or like, aren't you worried? Um, a lot of different, it's going to be expensive and all those things. But my parents were like, she has the opportunity. She got the opportunity and she wants to go, and we want to send her. Um, I think this will open up a lot more doors for her. So we don't want to stop it. So looking back, sometimes I think about this. When I at the airport, I don't know, I was very excited to come, and they were also excited to see me off, but we didn't cry or anything. We just said goodbye very nice, cheerfully
Wow.
into each other. And right now, if I have to send my daughter away, I think I would
Yeah.
cry.
You've got tough parents, man. Uh, so maybe one of the things about that freedom was you had so much freedom at home, and when you step out, maybe there were some constraints, whether it was society, et cetera, and you didn't want that, and you wanted the freedom that you probably absorbed because of the progressive nature of your parents, your grandparents. Maybe that's where the urge for freedom came. And so then you did your GRE. So tell us, and you did your GRE and you got admission in which college? And then we'll come to that
So I went
airport
to
scene. Sorry, go ahead.
I went to North Carolina State, NC
Okay,
State,
NC State.
in Raleigh. Yeah,
Wonderful. Jim Valvano's university, right?
yeah,
Where
that's right. Wow, you know him.
of course, he's just an incredible man. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he made that improbable talk about of all the. I mean, I can talk about that. It's a separate podcast, but you came here. You got admission in NC State. You left the airport. Mom and dad they waved you goodbye. You said goodbye because there was no issue. And then you landed in North Carolina. Did you have any
Yep.
friends, relatives, etc.? How was that?
Yeah. A friend was there. Somebody we knew very well. Like, he received me, and then there were a lot of other Indian students as well. So we just roomed with somebody. Like any place, like anything. First semester was obviously extremely hard. You come here and it's cold to start with. You probably went through a very similar experience yourself. I think all of us went through at some point. A cold, and the language, to some extent it's English, but still it's quite different, and the way of teaching, the classes are quite grading, and all of that is different. And then you also have to look for work, part-time work, and juggling a lot of things. It was certainly hard. I would be lying if I didn't. And then first semester was, my dad paid for it, which was good, but from second semester onwards, I had to fend for myself. So, which puts like because I certainly didn't want to go back and ask my parents for more money. um, so that's another thing, looking for some kind of assistantship, and, like working part time. Like, it was, hardship, going through. But I think that those are all the kinds of things that make you stronger. You learn from it, and that's what builds a character. So, um,
Yeah. So how did you find? I mean, the first semester, dad paid for it. Mom and
right.
dad pay for it, but you also knew the clock was ticking and you had to find an assistantship, and there are many people looking for assistantship, students from all over the world. So how were you able to find it, and tell us a little bit about that?
It was, I guess that talking to, I think that that's where value of networking, uh, uh, I became aware of value of networking,
How
probably,
how But
by
because
talking
that's
to,
an important lesson for our guests, for our listeners. Sorry, go ahead.
right, right. So, like, how do you find which professor has what funds and, which department and all of that, right? Like, there is no, like, nothing is posted anywhere in a job board or anything like that. You really have to know through somebody that knows the information. So by talking to other students, they say, "Oh yeah, this department got recently these funds from, I don't know, DOJ or whatever, right? Like, maybe you should talk to that professor." So like that, you kind of gather the information, and then you go talk to different professors and you give your pitch saying that, "Hey, I have these kinds of skills and I would love to work on your project. Hey, is there an opportunity?" You talk to 10 of them, and, if you're lucky, one will accept you and take you under their wings. So I think that's how that happened. But, like yeah, like anything else, it's like knocking on a lot of doors and finding that right information and pursuing it without getting discouraged whenever you hear a no.
Yeah. So it was knocking on a lot of doors, but not giving up because you were just in your second semester and, just 4 or 5 months away from leaving home, and you didn't get discouraged. You were, in fact, probably in a sense of urgency, right? That I've got to get this
Yeah,
internship
absolutely.
because, yeah,
Right, absolutely. Because going back is not an option at that
no.
point.
And not paying tuition is not an option either,
Correct.
because you
Exactly.
have your visa situation and all those other good things that happen.
Right.
So you were able to find someone who,
Mhm.
uh, took you as who was that and how did that happen?
So at NC State, there was this department, textile engineering department.
Which is a big one
Um,
in NC State, by the way. They're very
yeah,
well known
right.
for textile.
Right.
Yeah.
You seem to know a lot about NC
Yeah, I
State.
know
That's
NC
cool.
State quite a bit. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So one of the professors there, they got a lot of funding that year. Um, and my concentration has been industrial engineering. And so there was a project that was combination of industrial engineering, joint project between industrial engineering department and textile engineering department. So I was able to join that. He joined that project through that professor. Um, and the thesis, the concentration was around, um, you know, forecasting for apparel companies and things like the optimization, um, design of experiments and that type of stuff. Um,
Something like operations research, supply
yeah,
chain,
it was operations research. Yeah,
OR.
absolutely. Yeah,
Basically, we used to
yeah,
call it OR in those days.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, how was that experience being working as an intern or an assistant, teaching assistant
I
there?
think with that, I felt much more settled by the time second semester rolled out because by the time I good friends, and settled in the environment. Now, financially, I feel secure. I feel like that's a huge thing for anybody. Once you feel financially secure, then everything else will come in place. If you don't have the financial, stability, I think everything sort of falls apart and it just would have a domino effect. So I think that really, comforted me. And then so that now I can concentrate on my um, grades and, all the other aspects of it. Mm, After that, it just became, autopilot, if you will, for the next year and a half or so, till still you had to look for a job,
Job.
graduation time and look for a job.
And it begins all over again.
That's right.
So, how was it? So, let's say you graduated,
Mhm.
and how was that experience? And then looking for a job, Soumya, tell us
It
uh,
was,
what
uh,
happened?
it, I mean, this was in 1996. Um, just coming out of recession, I think job market was just about improving. So it was kind of a mixed bag, if you will. I probably sent out 50 or 100 resumes, and finally, um, AT&T actually reached out to me And that's how, I joined AT&T. Um, I- Either through internet, I don't remember exactly how it all happened, but I got a call from AT&T and said, "Would you be interested in it?" So I felt extremely lucky. I mean, looking compared to many other people, I probably didn't have to try that hard. I got the job while I was still in school before I graduated. That is a tremendous, tremendous comfort,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, AT&T, where in North Carolina, New
in New
Jersey?
Jersey,
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey, yeah, Bell Labs used
Bell
to be Bell
Labs.
Labs, yeah,
That's a great institution, one of the best research institutions. So,
right.
what were you hired to do there, Soumya?
I was hired as a process engineer because of my operations research background, and because also, you know, by that time in my cohort, in that year time, we were all computer savvy. Most of us knew programming, database design and that type of stuff. Even though I was industrial engineering operations research major, but we also acquired these skills just because of the timing, if you will. So I think that kind of combination was attractive for a role that they hired me for. So I joined as a process engineer, and the job was to um, one was like do simulation modeling and optimization for call centers. The queuing theory and all of that, like do simulation modeling based on number of calls coming, like that kind of stuff. Similar other projects were optimizing the process for their product development. Um, yeah, it was that type of stuff, and along with some web development and things like that as well. Um,
So, how many years did you stay in AT&T?
I stayed there for a long time. I think I was there for 15 plus years.
Wow.
Uh, Yeah,
But doing different things, right? Not the same thing.
right. I would say, I think on an average, every 3 years or so, I changed a role in AT&T. I think that was a good thing. That was a good thing about AT&T because it is so large that you can move around, and it's almost like starting a new job every time because, depending on the job you take, obviously. Uh, so I feel like I owe a lot to AT&T because I joined there as a fresh graduate, right? No industry experience, etc. But AT&T was such an institute um, for not only for the research, but the management principles and leadership principles and organizational dynamics and all of it. It really was an institute. So I picked up many of skills that are so useful to me today. I think I picked them up there, and I feel like I was trained well in that company. Mm.
So, another inflection point, would you say that getting hired by AT&T and the
Yeah,
opportunities
absolutely.
opportunities you got
Yeah,
because every few years you were kind of moving around learning different skills that kind of built your foundation.
yep, absolutely. That was foundation was, I think, super critical. It really built my foundation, and also technology wise, because AT&T is such a technology company, they're always on the cutting edge. So because of that reason, I was able to move with the times in terms of technology advancements. Um, I joined as a process engineer, but then a couple of years later, I moved into IP network, where IP networks was just coming. Before that, it was like ATM and frame relay, and then IP network. So I was part of the team that built IP backbone for for the company. Then I moved into voice over IP when that was, and similarly, yeah. In 2009, before I left the company, I was responsible for a cloud infrastructure when cloud was just starting. So it gave me those kinds of opportunities for me to grow and learn constantly, um,
Well,
and created that
I mean, such
technology
a
foundation.
varied, yeah, very strong technology foundation. You talk about frame relay, IP, voice over VoIP, uh, all the things that someone can use now. So then you moved to where after 15 years?
I think one of the inflection points during AT&T that really happened was, I think that is another huge inflection point for me. Um, this was, I want to say 2002, something like that, around that time. I had this opportunity to take on a role as a technology advisor for CTO and president of AT&T Labs. Uh, so I was directly working with him, and my job was to sort of be like a technology advisor to him, do some external research, and keeping him abreast of latest technologies, or what our vendors are doing and what the next frontier is, or get some of his other researchers to come and share their perspectives on certain new tech and that kind of stuff, right? So as part of that, um, this was 2002. AT&T was just a long distance company at that time, and it was looking to, uh, we're losing revenue significantly at that time. So we needed some kind of an alternative. Um, so our charter was to research alternative, last mile alternatives, like how do we get to the home last mile, right? Because AT&T didn't have access, like Verizon and the other Bell companies had it. AT&T didn't. Um, so I was able to lead that project, work with obviously his direct report team, and put together a strategy, last mile strategy. And we went through 10 different technologies, from power line to Wi-Fi to, voice over IP, and, many different line of sight, and like, many different things, 10 different assessing the ROI and all that kind of stuff, big strategy document. And he presented to board of directors at that time. And because of the way things were, there was no silver bullet, but we felt like voice over IP was the um, way we need to invest. And he presented that strategy and our recommendation, and the board of directors approved it and said, yes, let's go invest in voice over IP. And then because of, I did that whole, I was leading that whole thing, and I was like, just go and implement it. So then I left that role and um, moved on to actually implementing that voice over IP strategy, actual implementation of it. So that whole experience was like phenomenal. I don't think you can pay enough to get that type of experience, because I was, at a young age, seeing how the C-level executives work, and the thinking behind the strategy, what all the things that matter. And like, I got the direct exposure of it. I think that was, invaluable experience for me. That really changed my thinking going forward.
Phenomenal. I mean, because you were out there researching, finding out what's going to happen in the future, uh,
Right.
and then you are feeding that information to C-level executives. I mean, it's priceless. But how did you go out and ask for that position, or did they come to you? How did you get that very, very critical position in your career?
I think when the opening was happened, when um, my VP at that time was his direct report, and he became aware of the opening, and he recommended for that.
Wow.
That's how I ended up.
Well, you must have done a great job for him to recommend. So, but a very critical inflection point, because it gave you tremendous exposure, especially in voice over IP, which even now is a key aspect of telcos right now. Uh, so that was another big inflection point. So now, uh, when you moved from AT&T, what happened? Uh, Tell us a little bit about that. How did that come across?
um, so I go back a little bit. So I did the voice over IP, I think 4 or 5 years or so. And I was kind of like stable, going on an autopilot, if you will, because things sort of settled and all that. And then
You
my
don't
husband
like
and I,
autopilot.
we
You
just,
don't like autopilot, Soumya. Sorry, go
no,
ahead.
I don't.
Yeah, I know.
I
I
get very
know.
bored.
We can figure that out. Sorry, go. You like pilot, but you don't like autopilot. How about that?
Right.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So my husband and I, we decided to start a family. And then, I became pregnant. And interestingly enough, after that, I panicked. I'm like, oh my God, you know, uh, always wanted to go to business school to get an MBA, and I didn't. Now I'm going to have a kid, which means my life is over. I will never be able to do this. I panicked, and my husband, he's extremely supportive, great husband. He said, "No, don't worry about it. We'll figure out a way to do it. If that's what you want to do, we'll figure out a way." So, we so during my pregnancy, I started preparing for GMAT and stuff. So I used at one time, because these were like a 3.5 hour exams, practice exams you take, right? And sitting here with full belly, I used to think, oh my God, what's wrong with me? People in my situation would just go out, eat and enjoy, get pampered. And here I'm actually sitting and taking 3.5 hours exam. Like there's something wrong with me, right? But I went through it and applied and got into Columbia Business School. Decided to Yeah, decided to do an executive MBA because it's a weekend program so that my daughter was 5 months old when I started the program. So that was, I don't know what to call it, but it's a very interesting period because I was working full time and I had a baby at home and I was
Baby.
going to school over the weekend. Um,
Wow. It's
I
hard
don't
enough to
ask me
manage
how I
one. Hard enough to manage one. You were managing three. So how was that? Tell us. How did you manage that?
um, and I have to, give credit thanks to my family, my husband and his parents also moved in with me at that time to support us. So my mother-in-law was at home, so I had the good family support. I think that really helped me quite a bit. And my husband was supportive. And in AT&T, I had a big enough team and it was kind of running on autopilot. So that also helped a little bit. I think timing wise, it actually worked. The logic with my husband I came up with is maybe convenient logic. I don't know. When the baby is small, all they really need is somebody to feed them and change them. It doesn't matter who it is. So as long as it's baby infant, we're okay. But as they grow, then you need to be involved as a parent and you need to do, you want to be. So that's how we kind of came up with, okay, maybe this is actually not a bad time because we're going to have a support system anyway. So
Yeah,
let's just take
that's
advantage of
true.
it.
That's true. So then you did your MBA. How was that
Yeah,
experience? Did you enjoy the experience at Columbia?
yeah, very much enjoyed. I felt like for the
Case
first
study
time in
method?
life,
It was
yes,
case
case
study?
study.
Okay.
Yeah, Columbia, I guess maybe most business schools are case studies. It was just a fascinating for me because I felt like for the first time in my life, I learned for the sake of learning. I developed the love for learning. And it was not for getting a job or like passing an exam. It was not any of that. It was like truly learning. Loved economics. It's just fascinating to sit there and listen to Nobel laureate professors talking about global issues and all of that. So I really thoroughly enjoyed that experience. It was hard, but very enjoyable.
Great. So then uh, t- tell us about the next phase of the journey.
Yeah. So once I graduated, this was 2009, interestingly enough. um, the stock market crash and all of that. Even though I was kind of hoping to leave AT&T and do something different, that wasn't done, and that happened to be not right time because there were no jobs at that time, right? So but it's still, you make the best of what you have. So within AT&T, cloud infrastructure is where AT&T was looking to invest. So I moved to the business side, leading the cloud infrastructure program. I figured, what, if I move to business, I get some business experience as well as, it's a new technology and stuff. So I did that for a few years. And then this is where I think, the other change happened where one of the guys that I used to work with at AT&T was leaving and going to join NBC Universal. He was to run NBC Media Labs, we called it then. It was a innovation and emerging technology team. He was leading that. And um, I used to work with him sort of like outside of my job, evaluating new technologies and giving advice to CTO, like that type pro bono type of activity. That's how he knew me well. He asked me if I wanted to join him. I said, sure. I think this is a great opportunity for me to do something new, something different. So that's how I joined NBC Universal. And after a couple of years, he left, but then I stayed on and I ran the team for, I think I was at the NBC for about 5 years or so. And then Estée Lauder opportunity came up um, at the time. Um, and I said, okay, yeah, you know what? Yet another different industry, different thing. Well, let me go try that.
But you're not worried that this is not an industry you don't know anything about per se. Yes, it is tech. It is supply chain, which is stuff you know very well. So, well, it is exciting. It is beauty. It is fashion. So who the hell can say no to Estee Lauder? But thought process in your mind when you made a decision, because it helps inform our guests also.
See, I mean, for me, taking chances is part of my life, part of life, right? If you don't, then life is too boring. Like you said it yourself. I don't like to be on autopilot. I like to learn things. I want to. This is what I actually tell my team and anybody. Like when you get up in the morning, you want to be excited to come to work, and you should look forward to coming to work and do work. The day you don't feel that, it's time to change. You got to think about, okay, what do I do? What do I need to do? So that's how I feel like, once you are in a job for 5 years, I think the learning stuff, you feel content. You plateau. Right. That's how I felt at the end of 5 years at NBC. And when Estee Lauder came, I said, it's a brand new industry. I think it's something for me to learn. What could go wrong? Worst case, I might lose the job in about a year. So what? Right. That's okay. There'll be a lot of job, I have enough skills at this point that I'll find something else. But I think it's great that I can learn something new and at the same time contribute and, bring my and they were actually looking for my expertise, my type of expertise, which is emerging technologies. The brand president at that time was looking for how do we innovate and how do we improve our consumer experiences with new technologies? Because in China and stuff, the consumers are very much tech savvy. So how do we introduce new technologies to engage with the consumers, etc. And he also wanted somebody with different background who has seen different things, not just the same old stuff. I think, that I fit that expectation. And yeah, here I am. And then 2 years later, when the supply chain opportunity came, I was like, supply chain, I've never done this before. Yes, I touched a little bit in my master's, which was almost 20 plus years ago. But I said it's in Estee Lauder supply chain is a really backbone of the company, very complex because we operate in 150 plus countries and affiliates and stuff. And we have 25 brands with, so many thousands of SKUs and stuff. So it's a very complex supply chain ecosystem. Um, what's more challenging than making something like that?
Yeah, and you're always up for challenges. And I think so. The message to the listeners is don't let yourself hit a plateau. Make sure when you wake up, you're excited, no matter what it is, work, nonprofit, etc. You're excited and challenged about what you do. I think that's what you're
Yep.
saying.
Yep. Absolutely.
So it's been an incredible journey, Somya. So I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions that when you look back, you know, um, can you talk about a few of your favorite childhood memories?
Um, I mean, there are a lot, but if I have to probably summarize, it would be, going to my grandparents' village during holidays, hanging out with cousins and friends when we were little. I think that was definitely one of my favorite memories. And another one is, where I come from, Sankranti is the biggest holiday for us because of it's a mostly farming community where the crop comes home at that time, and it's kind of like a Thanksgiving in a way, right? So it was big, and we did like 3 days of celebrations different thing. It's like a month of different things leading up to it. It was, that's another my favorite memory of the things that we did during that time. Um,
So being with the grandparents and Sankranti, which is, if I'm remembering, it's January 14th is when Sankranti happened. It's a big, big thing, spring festival, s- different ways celebrated. So those are great memories. So Somya, when you look at Somya, who was looking for a teaching assistantship at NC State, going professor to professor. Her definition of success at that time probably was, if I get a teaching assistantship that I don't have to pay for tuition, that's my definition of success to today. I presume your definition of success has changed over time.
yeah, absolutely.
So, what is your definition of success now over a period of time now?
Yeah. So, like you said, it was originally getting the assistantship, right? But then later on, it became about a promotion or a title, better title, or like a better job, that kind of stuff. But now I think I've certainly evolved over a period of time, and now for me, it's all about the kind of impact that I create in the broader community, whether it be within my company or within the family or the general community. That's what really means a lot to me. So um, things that if I just look at job, like, it's not about promotion or a title anymore. It's about, okay, what kind of difference am I making in the company? What kind of impact am I creating by leading my organization, by changing the culture and taking it forward, those kinds of things. Similarly, I'm very much big into women in technology, encouraging more women in technology. I mm, created that ERG within Estée Lauder, um, that grew to be very big. And, I, so we do a lot of things, and that kind of impact for me speaks, volumes for me. I really enjoy that part of it. And similarly, in general, encouraging kids in STEM fields. And I am on the board for my daughter's high school. So through that, I do a lot of work there as well. So to me, like, these are the types of things that creating that kind of an impact in the broader community is what I call success at this time.
Oh, so I think paying it forward, that's what the definition has changed for you, which is very, very commendable. Soumya, you talked a little bit about it, but we ask our guests and they all talk about the role of mentors in their life. Do you think mentors play an important role? And they come in different shapes, sizes, parents, grandparents, this, that. What is your perspective on mentors?
Like you said, it does come in various shapes and forms. And, you may not always have a person designated as a mentor. That may not happen, right? But you can, I mean, in my lifetime, I I looked up to some people who I reached out to and said, talk to them saying that here is where I am. What's your advice for me? How do I deal? Can you help me? Like always run something. So there are a few people like that played an important role for me, advising me. And also there are, I call it distant mentors, where some of the executives that are, let's say, in my um, vicinity right now, I look up to them and I see what they do, their personality and some of the things that they do. And I pick up their best qualities and say, you know what, that's what I want to do. As an example, in Estee Lauder, like my CIO, Michael Smith, um, he is very much into, he calls it culture of joy. He really cares about employees being happy and, he wants them to be excited when they're at work and really as a company, ELC is a very, very much family oriented company, very familiar culture. And most executives are that way and they treat employees that way. I felt like I picked up that side of it and I'm working hard to sort of, uh, enhance that in me. So there are few executives like that I look up to and say, you know what, those are the qualities I want to emulate. So I kind of call that as a mentorship, even though they're not directly mentoring me, but I think I look to them as mentors in that sense. Um,
Great point. So you can have formal mentors, but what you're saying is those distant mentors where you admire someone and try to imbibe their qualities, their characters, values, etc. That's an excellent point, Somya. Somya, towards the end, we ask a lightning round of questions. So, short questions, short answers. So, our podcast is called Indianness, and we ask all our guests, and everybody has a different definition. What is your definition of Indianness?
as they say, you can take Indian out of India, but you can't take India out of Indian. I think I think that is so true. Even though we're all well assimilated in US, our Indian culture is so deep rooted. We as expats are the face of India to the world. And, we need to we represent the best of what India is all about. For me, it's that bringing the culture and best of both worlds, not really forgetting about where we came from and, embracing that both cultures and living it and passing it on to our next generation.
Very well said. Embracing both cultures, and and passing it on to the next generation. Uh, Great points. Uh, One person, Somya, that not related to you, living either in India or outside India that you admire, of somebody of Indian origin, living.
I would say probably Indira Nuri,
I knew that.
former PepsiCo
I knew that.
CEO.
But anyway, we had just someone, I think yesterday or day before, say the same. But anyway, go ahead. Great
Yeah,
choice.
I felt like she is also another person who came like me, right, from India and made her own life for herself and went to such great heights, one of the best CEOs in the world, right,
Mhm.
most successful CEOs in the world. So I really admire her. I think, yeah,
Great
she's
choice.
amazing.
One person who's been the most influential in your life, one, in your journey, the most influential person in your journey.
Probably my mom. I want to say my parents, but like my mom and dad
Pick
together in
one.
different ways.
Uh,
I would say my mom.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she is a very different woman. Again, doesn't fit the mold. Yeah,
Yeah. Obviously, uh, very progressive. So,
yeah.
great choice. Is there a book or a movie that has profoundly impacted you? Any of that?
I mean, there are a lot of good books, but if I had to pick one, I would say Freakonomics is one of the best books that I felt, because that really inspired me to study economics and it really um, taught me the love for economics. showed me how a small decision can change. Can have a huge impact
Yeah.
over a period of time.
Yeah. Another good choice. Sowmya, Nike's tagline is just do it. If you had a tagline, what would that be?
It, I mean, I never thought about it this way, but lately in the past few years, I hear myself saying repeatedly to my team and others, like, we need to start somewhere. So what I mean to say is, when you look at what you need to do, it may look overwhelming, insurmountable kind of a thing, but don't wait for that perfect opportunity to start. Let's just start somewhere and let's get going. And even if you achieve half of it, it's still better than, nothing where we are today. So we need to start somewhere. That's usually I end up saying a lot. Yeah.
Let's start somewhere. I like that. You got to start somewhere. Last thing, because we touched on it in the beginning, you were going to talk about it is you wanted to be a pilot, but now you in the US, you did become a pilot. So give us a quick snippet to our audience as to how and what happened.
Um, So interestingly enough, when I met my husband, we were talking and all of that, and then found out that he also wanted to be a pilot, and he actually took a couple of lessons, but didn't really, uh, go further. So when his interest and my interest, we were like, oh my God, yeah, let's do it together. So that's how, once we got married and we felt we had, some decent amount of money to afford, we started training together, both of us. And yeah, that's how, yeah.
So now, are you a licensed pilot, just for our audience to know?
Yep, I am I'm a private pilot.
Wow.
Yep.
So that tells you, hey, when you put your mind to it, she wanted to do it in Andhra Pradesh, and now she's a licensed pilot in the US. So, congratulations, Somya. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing, amazing journey. And thank you for being so open. Not easy, but thank you really for taking the time. It's been great, great inspirational conversation.
No, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It's great. It was so easy to talk to you, and yeah, really enjoyed the conversation.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.